The basic F-14 was a carrier-based fighter developed for the US Navy during the 1960s, which entered widespread service with the fleet during the 70s. I've covered its general history in other videos. Over time, the F-14 received a few upgrades to maintain its capabilities. The final version of the jet that entered service was the F-14D in 1991. The D model had an upgraded radar set along with an infrared search and track system, Link 16 capability, new cockpit internals and digital avionics, along with a few other modernizations. Fundamentally, the air combat weapon system remained basically the same. The F-14D was tested with the AIM-120 AMRAAM, but didn't carry it operationally, instead relying on the familiar AIM-54 Phoenix as its primary weapon for medium and longer range air-to-air combat. The D model was also capable of ground attack, mostly through use of the Lantern targeting pod along with laser-guided bombs, or eventually JDAMs. There was a proposal to modify the F-14D into a dedicated ground attack strike aircraft under the Quick Strike program, but the costs couldn't be justified and it went nowhere. While the F-14D was officially retired in 2006, legislation recently passed the US Senate in mid-2026 to pull the last three mostly intact F-14Ds out of the boneyard and restore them for museum display or, if possible, to get them in a flying condition for air shows. As of making this video, the bill is stalled in the House of Representatives, but who knows, maybe you'll be able to see one of these things at an air show in a couple of years. What we get in War Thunder is the F-14D Super Tomcat. This is a very expensive premium from Rank 8 of the US Air Tree at battle rating 13.0 for air and 12.0 for ground. As a general rule, I don't tell people how to spend their money, but the price tag on this is hard to justify. This jet gets a pretty good set of top-tier features, including a ballistics computer, a fairly good radar warning receiver, and an integrated optical targeting system with night vision for the pilot. Its radar is the AN/APG-71, which is an upgrade over earlier Tomcats. It features multiple look-down modes, track while scan, 6 data link channels, non-cooperative threat recognition, and even a ground MTI search mode. On top of this, it gets an infrared search and track unit, which is kind of a novelty for an American jet. For loadouts, the F-14D gets a huge selection of both air-to-air and some air-to-ground ordnance, including BOL countermeasure rails on some of the stations. As a premium, it gets all of this unlocked by default. Your close-in dogfight missile is the AIM-9M. This is an all-aspect infrared weapon with strong pull, good tracking, and infrared countermeasures. If you're new to jet fights at this tier, try to launch these leading the target a bit, and you'll get a lot of kills with them. Your semi-active radar missile is the AIM-7M. These have the disadvantage that you have to maintain a radar lock, but they fly faster than the AIM-54s, and they're fairly effective within around 20 kilometers if you're careful with your shots. Your long-range missile is the AIM-54C+, which has active radar homing, inertial guidance, and data link support. These are pretty slow to accelerate, and recent tweaks have made them much more effective the higher you are when you fire them. More about that in a couple of minutes. For air-to-ground ordnance, you get a bunch of good choices, but I've got a few favorites. The GBU-31s are huge JDAMs with good accuracy and a large blast radius. These are fire-and-forget weapons, but have the drawbacks that you can't redirect them after they're dropped, and if you drop from high altitude or long range, they can take quite a while before they impact. If you prefer laser-guided bombs that offer a little more flexibility, the eGBU-24 Paveway 3s won't let you down. This is another one with a huge warhead and good accuracy, plus it's got inertial guidance and GNSS for a little extra flexibility if you lose your lays. Now, the flight performance of the F-14D is quite good, just like the other Tomcats. If you jump into this without having much experience with higher-tier jet fighters, strap in because there's going to be a learning curve. The F-14D has excellent acceleration, top speed, and rate of climb. It's just plain fast. Again, if you're new to this tier of jets, what you generally want to do is called a Mach climb. Accelerate past Mach 1 at the start of the match before you go up. Trust me, it makes a big difference. Its turn performance can be kinda gimmicky. You can get some really good turns out of this thing at high subsonic speeds, but some of it's going to depend on your wing sweep, which probably doesn't surprise you. You can use the manual wing sweep and throw the wings forward for dogfighting, or you can leave it on automatic. The automatic wing sweep will tend to favor acceleration over turn rate, but I've found in 90% of situations it works fine. But just know that you can juice a little extra angle a little earlier by using the manual wing sweep. That can also be a little bit more relevant if you're dogfighting with a competent opponent. The other thing to remember is that the F-14 is a heavy jet, and if you're not using the afterburners, it's going to lose a lot of energy in maneuvers, especially loops or climbs. Plus, the engines chug gas pretty quickly with the burners going, so make sure to watch your fuel. Now again, if you're new to high-tier jets like this, flying the F-14D into air battles is going to be, frankly, overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff going on that you need to worry about, and a shameless plug to check out the tutorials playlist on my channel if you need a refresher on how to operate the radar, missiles, or whatever else. With that out of the way, I want to give you the normal word of caution with the F-14. The vast majority of long-range shots you take with the AIM-54 are going to miss. If you hit like 1 out of 4 long-range shots out past 40 kilometers or so, that's a pretty good result and you're having a good day. My preferred weapon load is 2 AIM-54s, 4 AIM-7s, and a pair of Sidewinders with the BOL dispensers. This gives a couple of good long-range shots from high altitude early in the match, but still has weapons for medium and close-range fighting. Another thing to remember is that the AIM-54's flight model was changed recently, and you get significantly better performance out of it if you launch it from higher altitudes. Regardless though, it's a very slow missile, and if you throw one of these out at long range, it can take over a minute to reach the target, so it helps to maintain that data link as long as possible if you're trying to make a BVR shot. For close-in dogfighting, the Super Tomcat is at a small disadvantage against a lot of its opponents as it doesn't have a helmet-mounted sight, and none of its weapons are especially good at high off-boresight shots. Still, it's not a struggle bus. Your ACM is just going to have to be absolutely on point against some of the opponents this thing can face, and make generous use of vertical aspect ACM frames in order to help compensate for the lack of an HMS. For ground attack, the Super Tomcat can do ground attack in air battles, but honestly don't bother with that. It's a waste of weapon pylons that could have missiles. Just stick to air combat with this thing. For close air support, it's another story, as its guided bombs can be effective. Just remember that the threat environment over a top-tier ground battle these days is, frankly, kind of a disaster, and you're going to find yourself pretty often just randomly exploding from SAMs that didn't set off your radar warning receiver. Turn and run immediately after dropping your bombs, and hope for the best. Visually, the F-14 has always been a really badass looking jet, and it's just got a coolness factor that's hard to pin down. The Super Tomcat gets some really great paint jobs, and I didn't find any issues on the 3D model. Good marks. Landing is going to be worth practicing if you're new to high-tier jets. You can put the gear out at a little over 500 kilometers an hour, and the landing flap's a little over 400, but the wings will have to be unswept, of course. It's got an arrestor hook, so you can take advantage of that on the runways now, but we know what it's really for, so hit the carrier any chance you get. The cockpit has good visibility, a useful heads-up display, and most of the instruments are in good spots. My only gripe is that it seems like only the right side MFD can change modes, but it's possible the controls are just screwed up or something since the update. Overall, it's a decent experience with the VR headset. To close out on the F-14D. This jet has excellent long-range weapons, a good radar set, great flight performance, and it can do carrier stuff. However, no helmet-mounted sight, it's physically a large target in a close-up dogfight, and, oh yeah, it's insanely overpriced. The final verdict on the F-14D is that this is a fun and effective jet, but it's just really expensive. Again, as a rule, I don't tell people how to spend their money, but these are some very expensive pixels. As always, thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, check out this next one.